Hello and welcome to the Intel Brief. Today is Thursday, 5 February. I'm your host Daniel, and today we're going to talk about the last US nuclear treaty has expired, US-Russian nuclear treaty that is. China's Xi Jinping has held calls with Trump and Putin on the same day, and the US is looking to establish a critical mineral trade bloc. So firstly, the threat of a renewed global nuclear arms race came a little closer to reality as the last remaining nuclear arms control treaty between the United States and Russia expired at midnight GMT on Thursday. The new START Pact and its predecessors had for decades imposed limits on the world's two largest nuclear arsenals, and it lapsed at midnight GMT or 7 p.m. EST, according to the United Nations, without an agreement to extend it. The US and Russia, the world's two largest superpowers, will no longer be bound by the upper limits for their strategic nuclear arsenals. Russia, however, pledged to act responsibly while warning that it could take decisive measures if its security were threatened, the foreign ministry in Moscow said on Wednesday. Washington has not announced plans to adhere to the treaty's limits beyond the deadline. So what? I mean, this is a pretty, scary thing to have happened. Nuclear weapons are and will always be a pretty just scary thing to have on the table. And while mutually assured destruction has been a great way of ensuring world peace, it isn't really working at the moment, as people are really testing the limits of how far they want to push each other, and whether people will fire a nuclear weapon. So yeah, not a great bit of news for your Thursday morning, but hopefully it doesn't really change anything. I mean, this was just one treaty of a number that are no longer in place. So there was already the ability for countries to make like short and medium range nuclear weapons, which in the past were covered under different treaties. So yeah, hopefully we don't see a large nuclear arms race, though, China has been increasing its nuclear arsenal over the past 10 years. So it's not like it was covering all the bases anyway. And next, China's President Xi Jinping discussed Iran and other major global issues in separate calls with the United States and Russian President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, according to the Chinese and US accounts released on Wednesday. The calls came as Beijing seeks to solidify relations with Moscow while managing tensions with Washington over trade, Taiwan, and international security. Chinese state media said Xi called for mutual respect in US-China relations. In his conversation with Putin, Xi hailed the strengthening of the bilateral ties amid what he described as a turbulent global situation. Trump said the phone call discussion was excellent in a post on Truth Social. He said his personal relationship with Xi remained extremely good, and the US president said that two leaders had discussed trade, Taiwan, the Russian war in Ukraine, and Iran. Xi reportedly voiced that hopes that disputes between the two largest economies would be resolved through incremental trust building. Chinese state broadcaster CCTV, that's a hilarious name, quoted Xi as saying issues could be tracked one by one. He said that the goal should be for China and the United States to move forward with mutual respect, peaceful cohesion, and win-win cooperation. So what? I mean, this makes sense, right? Xi is currently trying to sort out his high-level military leadership. So while that is taking place, he feels that China isn't as strong as it could be and is, unable to command respect through military means. So he's looking to use other levers at his disposal, such as his personal relationship with Trump, to try and cool the waters for a bit. That makes complete sense to me. I think I talked yesterday in the podcast about how, maybe even on my post last night, about how his lack of senior military leadership and the current issues within the military mean that China is unable to support Iran in ways that it previously had been able to. So it's possible that this is Xi's way of trying to cover that base through his personal relationship, trying to essentially talk Trump and the US back from attacking Iran / trying to destroy its entire regime. So yeah, it kind of makes sense. I don't know. It's whether it works seems unlikely. Trump is pretty strong-headed on some of these issues, let's say. It's a nice way of putting it. So yeah, I'm not sure that he'll. Generally, he seems to listen to the last person he talks to, so it'll be good until he talks to someone else, and then he'll move on. And lastly, US Vice President J.D. Vance has announced plans to establish a critical minerals trade bloc with allies and partners, proposing coordinated price floors as Washington escalates efforts to loosen China's grip on minerals crucial for advanced manufacturing. The Trump administration intends to employ tariffs to maintain minimum prices and shore up supplies of critical minerals used to make semiconductors, EV vehicles, and advanced weapons. So what? I think this is a great move. It became very clear recently that China's control of critical minerals is a large strategic issue for the West. So establishing their own supply chains that cut out a reliance on China is a great move, in my opinion. I hope that the rest of the West trusts America enough right now to, lean into this and to get involved, because the relationships are currently quite turbulent due to, the tariffs and other moves by the Trump administration. But this could be a very good move of cutting China out and ensuring that we aren't reliant on them for, critical materials when things become even more tense, which is possible over the next 24 months. But yeah, I know, quite cool. I like it. Hopefully it works out. That's been your Intel Brief. I've been your host, Daniel, and I'll see you again tomorrow. See you.